Okay, so during the lecture, I talked about sort of the background in budgeting, what all the different schedules are that go into a budget, into a master budget. And at this point, I want to show you how to do it one step at a time. All right, we're going to do this in Excel. And what you see on my screen here, we've got Microsoft Excel over here. And then we've got two views of the PowerPoints. One is this graphic that shows all these different schedules that go from the sales budget, how that flows into the production budget, which then you use to create your purchasing and direct labor and overhead budget. That goes into your unit costs. You figure out your cost of goods sold, which goes into your income statement, your budgeted income statement. And this is your operating budget. The operating budget consists of a budgeted income statement accompanied by all these support schedules up above. So everything sort of from here on over. And then we'll go through each step of those in this series of videos. Okay, I'll try to keep them around 10 minutes a piece, keep them manageable for you. But the bottom line here is, look, you have to do this in Excel. You have to create the Excel spreadsheets before you even make an attempt to do the Cengage data entry. Remember, Cengage is nothing more than data entry. Doing the analysis, doing the calculations is what it's all about. So let's go ahead and do it. So our story is that we've got a company that sells t-shirts. They buy plain white t-shirts and then they print them up. And so the first thing we have to do is make a sales budget. Sales budget is the first step of all of this budgeting. It describes what you expect to earn in terms of units and in terms of dollars, and then everything else flows out of the sales budget. That's why it's up at the top of this flow chart. You want it to be as accurate as possible, but of course you have no idea, right? Really, what your sales are going to be unless you have a long track record and you know what's likely to happen. So although it's important to be accurate, there's a lot of back and forth. And what happens is the sales forecast in this initial sales budget is really just the beginning step. And that's why it's so important to do these schedules and make them flow through properly in a spreadsheet, because what's going to happen is, 2 months from now, as you're developing all these budgets, I mean, this is how it actually works in the real world, somebody could come back and say, geez, I'm not sure that we're going to sell as much as we thought. And you have to make an adjustment to the sales budget. And that's why it's so important to do this in an automated and interlinked way, which is what I'm going to teach you how to do. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, so I've got this whole spreadsheet prepared over here. And I'm not going to have you suffer through watching me format things, all right? I showed you how to format stuff. You did the Excel basics book, so I'm not going to do a lot of formatting work with you. I'm just going to show you how to do the calculation. So I'm going to unhide the blank sales budget sheet, right? And so what we've got here, we are preparing a quarterly sales budget, and we know we're going to sell 1,000, 1,200, 1,500, and 2,000 units each quarter, and that the price is going to be $10 per shirt. And what we want to do is prepare a sales budget. So budgeted sales in units. Okay, so we have 1,000 in the first quarter, and 1,200 in the second, and 1,500 in the third, and 2,000 in the fourth quarter, and that gives us an annual total. All right, we're going to use the sum function and sum up that row. So that's 5,700 shirts we're going to sell in total. The price per unit is $10. And so then our sales revenues are going to be, right, we multiply the amount of sales times what we're selling them for per shirt, right? So we take and copy that formula all the way over, and let's take a look at how, right, so we'll just change the titles, the units, and price, that's fine, and budgeted sales. Right, so that's how you do the sales budget, and this is the beginning, this is the basis of everything else we do. Now with production budget, right, so we start with a sales budget, we figured out how much we want to sell, the next thing we need to do is figure out how much we need to produce in order to be able to make those sales goals. So the first thing to keep in mind is that you can't just produce exactly what you're planning on selling every quarter. Like, we're planning on selling 1,000 shirts in the first quarter, but we can't just make 1,000 shirts. What if we contract to sell more than that? So we have to start dealing with inventory, right? So we are gonna need to stockpile some of our production to be ready to go for the following quarter, okay? And so just like in our inventory calculations from 213, right, we have to take into account our ending and beginning inventory, and in order to produce everything we need, we have to look at this statement here. So our units that we need to produce is our expected sales plus the amount that we need to stockpile, or the amount that we have in ending inventory, and then we subtract out the units that we began with, right? And that's how much we need to produce. Okay, you'll see how this works in a minute. It's a lot more simple than it sounds. Okay, so here is our production budget. And so the first thing, right, we have our sales units up here. But look at, here we require that 20% of next quarter's sales are held in ending inventory, right? So what I do, and this is best practices in Excel, keep all your assumptions and your requirements outside and separate from your schedule. That way, if somebody changes their mind, you can easily go and change this. Let's say somebody says they want to have 25% of next quarter's sales. If you keep your assumptions and your requirements outside of your schedules or your budgets, you can easily change your assumptions, okay? We are also assuming that the beginning inventory was 180 units, so they started the year with 180 units. And also that next year in our first quarter we are going to sell 1,000 units as well. All right. So now we have everything we need to make a schedule that looks like this. Okay. So here we go. I'm going to unhide the schedule entry sheet, right? So our sales in units, we have to pick that up from the schedule above. Okay, so we can just do that all the way across. Okay, now our desired ending inventory is going to be 20%, right, of what we're selling next quarter. All right, so let's make an equation for that. It's going to be 20% of what we're selling next quarter is going to be our ending inventory. Now, watch what happens if I go to try to drag that across, right? It doesn't work. Remember, we have to make that reference when we are referring to the 20%. We need to make it an absolute cell reference by entering either F4 if you have a Windows machine, or just manually putting in a $sign if you have a Mac. Okay, so now if I copy this formula over, okay, it works okay, except watch what happens here, right? In the fourth quarter, it's calculating incorrectly. because in the fourth quarter, this calculation is picking up our annual total, which is not what we want it to be doing, right? So even though Excel makes things automated for you, you still have to use common sense and manually make adjustments in the spreadsheet. Now we want the ending inventory to be 20% of this 1,000 units for next year. Okay, so that means that in the first quarter, we need to produce 1,240, etc. Okay. Our ending inventory, by the way, for the year is going to be that 200 figure. Right, so the year overall, we need to be producing 5,900. Now, our beginning inventory in the first quarter is that 180 units up here. Now this, they're showing this to you as a negative number shown in parentheses, so let's follow that logic there. So we had 180 beginning inventory in the first quarter. In the second quarter, right, our beginning inventory is going to be last quarter's ending inventory, and so on. Right, so here's our ending inventory from last quarter is going to be our beginning inventory here. And again, thinking about it logically, right, we can't just copy this over, that'll mess us up. Right? We need to think about for the year, our beginning inventory was this 180, negative 180. So now we know how much we need to produce. We are going to sell 1,000. We need to make 240 more than that. That means we need to totally have 1,240 available, but we subtract from that what we already had in stock, our beginning inventory, and so that tells us how much we need to produce, which is going to be these two numbers together, 1,060, and copy that all the way across, and it works out right. I'm going to redo my formatting of the outside box there to make it look nice and neat, and I want to note, okay, when I go to look at your spreadsheets, right, I'm going to give you 0 points unless you are using formulas correctly and never entering numbers by hand. So you will see, watch this, you go into the formula tab, this is how I can tell whether you're using formulas right. Go into show formulas, and of course that grew a lot because I had the window really large, but look at this, right? There is nothing in this whole schedule that is not either a cell reference or a formula. Everything in this schedule is picking up from these assumptions or from prior sheets. So if I see any of these numbers entered as numbers on your work, I will give you a 0 on the whole project. Okay? You have to do this and you have to do it right. Okay. Next video will be about how to prepare these subsidiary budgets to get to your unit cost.